You know, navigating the special education system, it can feel like you're trying to solve a puzzle in the dark, right? But what if you had a roadmap? Today we're going to break down your legal rights as a parent of a child with an IEP, turning that whole complex system into a clear path forward so you can get your child the support they are legally entitled to. Okay, let's dive in.
So you've put in the work, you've been to the meetings, and your child has an IEP. But you've got this nagging feeling, don't you? That maybe you're not really being heard, or that the plan on that piece of paper just isn't what's actually happening in the classroom. If that sounds even a little bit familiar, trust me, you are not alone. And this is for you. All right, first up, let's talk about the challenge itself. You know, maybe your kid is having these emotional breakdowns at school, and you're just feeling completely lost and overwhelmed. Our goal here is to take that feeling of confusion and turn it into the confidence you need to be an effective advocate. Okay, so this is where we get to the foundation of your power as a parent. And look, it's not just about what you feel is right. It's about what is legally required. Federal law, that's your shield. It's your greatest tool in all of these conversations. And it all kicks off with this idea, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. This is the federal law that says public schools have to provide special education services to eligible students. This isn't just a friendly suggestion, folks. It's a requirement, and it's the source of all your rights. Now, inside IDEA, there's this really important idea called FAPE, which stands for Free Appropriate Public Education. And honestly, the most important word in that whole phrase is appropriate. This isn't just about sticking your kid at a desk in a classroom. It means their education has to be specifically designed for their unique needs. And that's where this next part is so important. FAPE isn't just about showing up, it's about making progress. The law literally says your child has the right to get a meaningful educational benefit. So think about it. If they aren't making real progress, the school might actually not be meeting its legal duty. That's a huge deal. All right, next up we have LRE, which stands for Least Restrictive Environment. In plain English, it means your child has a legal right to be in a regular classroom with their peers as much as humanly possible. And here's the kicker. The burden is on the school to prove why a more restrictive setting is needed. Inclusion is the default, by law. And of course, the IEP itself. Please, don't think of this as just a list of nice suggestions. It is a legally binding contract, period. The school is required by law to do everything in that document, exactly as it's written. If they're not, they are breaking federal law. Okay, so to be a really effective advocate, you've got to know who you're talking to, right? So let's break down who does what on the school's team, who's actually accountable for making sure your child succeeds. First, let's talk about the school psychologist. You know, their role is often way broader than parents think. They're on the hook for mental health support, crisis intervention, helping develop behavior plans, and really importantly, working with you, the family. They're a huge resource for your child's emotional well-being. So let's bring this back to that real-world scenario we talked about. If your child had an emotional breakdown at school, was the psychologist called in? Did they provide support? Did they help create a plan? You have every single right to ask these questions. It's a fundamental part of their job. All right. This table really lays it all out for us. It's all about accountability. Your IEP teacher, they're the ones coordinating and making the plan happen. The general ed teacher, their job is to make the accommodations in the classroom a reality. And who's overseeing the whole thing? The principal. They make sure the resources are there and the law is followed. See? Everyone has a job to do. All right, so you know your rights, you know who the players are. Now comes the really practical part, your advocacy toolkit. This section is all about giving you the exact words, the key questions, the tools you need to communicate and actually get things done. And these questions, they're direct, they're powerful, and they are 100% your right to ask. Simple things like, are the services in the IEP actually being provided right now? Or, can I see the data you're collecting on my child's progress? And a big one, what specific training on autism or ADHD has the staff received? See? These questions force them to give you specifics, not just vague answers. Oh, and this is so important to remember. You do not have to wait for that once-a-year review. If things aren't working, if you're worried, if that IEP needs to be changed, you can request a meeting anytime. They legally have to give you one. And here's a pro tip for when you go to that meeting. Remember this key safeguard. You can often record it. Now, the rules do change from state to state. Like in Florida, you just have to let them know in advance. So definitely check your local rules, because having a recording is the best way to make sure there's an accurate record of what was said.
Okay, this next point is a really critical distinction, especially if your child gets outside support, say from an RBT, a registered behavior technician. You have to be super clear with the school about what their role is. An RBT is there for behavioral therapy, which is amazing and vital, but they are not an educator.
And that leads right into this. It doesn't matter what other support your child gets from the outside. The school is still 100% responsible for your child's education. Their legal obligation doesn't just disappear. They can't outsource it. The buck stops with the school, period.
Look, we all hope that you can just work collaboratively with the school. But what happens when that's not enough? It is so important that you know what your path forward is. You are not stuck. There are clear, formal steps you can take to escalate things.
And this right here, this is your escalation ladder. It shows you the path. Step 1 is always to request another IEP meeting. Try to solve it together. But if that doesn't work, you can file a formal complaint with the state. And for those really big disagreements, you have the right to what's called a due process hearing, which is basically a formal legal procedure.
And through this entire process, I want this to be your mantra. Document everything. I mean everything. Every email, every phone call log, notes from every meeting. You are creating a paper trail. Why? Because if you do have to escalate, those records, that's your evidence. It's your power.
And this all comes down to your tone, how you approach these conversations. You can be both collaborative and firm at the same time. There is so much power in saying something like, I am fully committed to working with you as a partner, and then adding, and I am also fully committed to making sure my child's legal rights are upheld. It shows you're a team player, but you also know the law and you're not afraid to use it.
I really want you to let this next thought sink in. When you are advocating for the services in your child's IEP, you are not asking for a favor. You are not being that parent. You're not being unreasonable. You are simply asking the school to follow federal law. Your requests are valid, they are legitimate, and they are legally protected. So, there you have it. You now have the knowledge, you have the tools, you know your rights, and you know the path forward. Never forget that you are, without a doubt, your child's best, strongest, and most powerful advocate. So the only question left is, what's your first step?